The night everything changed. It happened on a rainy Thursday evening, the kind of night that seems designed to test you. I was standing outside a small cafe, waiting for her. Her name was Vanessa. She had this effortless elegance, sharp eyes, smooth voice, a smile that could disarm anyone. To me, she wasn't just a woman I admired. She was a dream of everything I thought I wanted. We had met months earlier, at an event I could barely afford to attend. I was a temp worker then, juggling odd jobs, delivering food during the day, cleaning offices at night. I had no car, no fancy apartment, no grand story to impress anyone with. But when Vanessa spoke to me that night, I believed for a brief moment that I could belong in her world. I worked up the courage to ask her to meet me for coffee. She said yes. And for days, that single yes became my fuel. I borrowed a blazer from a friend, polished my old shoes until they shone, and promised myself I would make a good impression, that she would see beyond my current struggles. But life has a cruel sense of timing. When she arrived, her expression said everything before she even spoke. She looked me over, from my worn shoes to my faded shirt, and I could feel her judgment like static in the air. Still, I smiled and tried to start a conversation. "So, how have you been?" I asked. She gave a short laugh, not cruel but cold. "Busy. Unlike some people, I actually have a career to manage." Her words stung, but I brushed them off, hoping to shift the mood. "I'm working on a few things myself," I said, trying to build something. She interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "Please, don't start with that someday talk. You've been saying that since I met you. You're a nice guy, but honestly, I don't have time for dreams that never happen." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, the noise of the cafe faded, and all I could hear was the echo of her words. Not worth her time. Then she leaned back, looking almost pitying. "You should focus on finding someone more on your level," she said. "Someone who won't expect you to keep up." She stood up, gathered her purse, and left, just like that. I sat there for nearly an hour after she was gone, staring at the half-finished coffee between my trembling hands. Every word replayed in my mind, burning deeper each time. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was humiliated, broken in a quiet way only rejection can manage. But humiliation, I would learn, is a powerful seed. That night, as I walked home through the rain, soaked and cold, something inside me shifted. I stopped seeing her words as an insult and started seeing them as a challenge. If I wasn't worth her time, then I would make myself into someone who no one could dismiss again. The next morning, I quit my part-time delivery job, not out of anger, but out of clarity. I couldn't keep living on scraps of time and hope. I needed a plan, something bigger than surviving day to day. I sold my old phone, sold the few things I had of value, and used the money to enroll in a coding course I'd been researching for months. The idea terrified me. I knew nothing about business, programming, or even how to start, but I knew how to work, and I promised myself I would outwork every single person in that room. The first weeks were brutal. I barely slept, surviving on instant noodles and borrowed Wi-Fi. My clothes were worn, my bank account nearly empty, but I carried something priceless: hunger. When people laughed or doubted me, I remembered her words. Not worth her time. Each repetition became fuel. I wrote it on a note above my desk, not as bitterness, but as fire. 3 months later, I built my first small app. Simple, clumsy, but mine. It didn't make money, but it worked. That was enough to convince me that maybe, just maybe, I could turn this into something real. I began freelancing for small businesses, creating websites for almost nothing just to gain experience. I learned late at night, coded early in the morning, and treated every small project like it was worth $1 million. Slowly, my name started circulating in local circles. But success doesn't arrive in a straight line. There were setbacks, clients who didn't pay, projects that crashed, nights where exhaustion whispered that maybe she was right, that maybe I wasn't worth anyone's time. But every time that thought came, I fought it, because I had made a silent promise that night in the rain, not to prove her wrong, but to prove myself right. One evening, I received a message from a small startup looking for a web developer to join their team. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. I applied with a portfolio of half-finished projects and a heart full of fear. They hired me. That job changed everything. Within months, I learned not just coding, but leadership, how to pitch ideas, manage projects, and communicate value. For the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was building. I saved every extra dollar, studying business and design on the side. I began dreaming not just of working for a company, but one day, owning one. 2 years later, I launched my own startup, a platform connecting small businesses with freelance developers. It was risky, and for months, nothing happened. Investors ignored me. Friends doubted me, and my savings vanished faster than I could replenish them. But I kept building. I believed in what I was doing because I believed in who I was becoming. Then, one morning, everything changed. A small article about my startup went viral after a major business magazine featured under the headline, "From Homeless to CEO, the man who built opportunity out of rejection." Within weeks, our user base tripled. Investors who once ignored me were now calling. For the first time, I wasn't chasing opportunity. Opportunity was chasing me. One evening, I attended a business gala downtown, the same kind of event where I had first met Vanessa years ago. I walked into that room no longer invisible. My suit was tailored, my shoes polished, but more importantly, my confidence was quiet and steady. I wasn't looking for her. But when I saw her across the room, standing with a group of executives, something in me froze. She looked almost the same, poised, confident, but her eyes carried something I hadn't seen before, curiosity. When our eyes met, she hesitated. For a brief moment, time folded back on itself. She began walking toward me. "David," she said softly, her voice uncertain. "I can't believe it's you." I smiled. "It's been a long time." She looked around, noticing people greeting me. Investors, entrepreneurs, colleagues. "You're doing well," she said, her tone half question, half admission. "I've been fortunate," I replied. "A lot of hard work, and a few lessons learned the hard way." Her smile faltered just slightly. "I've heard about your company. It's impressive." "Thank you," I said, meeting her gaze. "It's built on what people once told me I couldn't be." Her eyes softened, maybe regret, maybe realization. "You've really changed," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I just became who I was always meant to be." She was silent for a moment, then asked, "Would you like to catch up sometime?" I paused, feeling the weight of years between us, the rain, the rejection, the transformation. I smiled, but not cruelly. "Maybe someday," I said. "Right now, I'm a little busy building the future." And then I walked away, not out of pride, but out of peace. That night, as I stepped outside into the cool air, I realized something profound. Her rejection hadn't destroyed me. It had defined me. And though the story seemed complete, deep down I knew this was only the beginning. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's proving yourself right. The return. Success has a strange way of rewriting the past. When you finally rise, people start remembering you differently, some out of admiration, others out of guilt. For months after that gala, I couldn't escape the shadow of that night. My company, Evolve, had just secured its first major investment deal. The press loved the rags to riches narrative. My face was in magazines, my inbox overflowing with invitations. But beneath the spotlight, I felt a quiet emptiness, a silence that success couldn't quite fill. It wasn't about Vanessa anymore. At least, that's what I told myself. But every time someone mentioned her name, and it happened more often than I expected, something inside me tensed. The city was small, and in the world of business, even smaller. She worked for one of the biggest marketing firms downtown, the same kind that Evolve was now negotiating with for a partnership. It was inevitable that our paths would cross again. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. It started with an email. Subject: Proposal collaboration. Stratton Marketing X Evolve from Vanessa Reed. I read it 3 times before I breathed again. The tone was formal, professional. No trace of our shared history. "Mr. Carter," it began, "we've been following your company's rapid growth, and Stratton would be honored to explore potential collaboration. Please let us know a convenient time to meet." My assistant, Jasmine, noticed my silence. "Everything okay, boss?" "Yeah," I lied, minimizing the window. "Just old ghosts." The meeting was set for Thursday afternoon. The same day, same time, as the 1 year ago when she walked out of that cafe. I didn't believe in coincidences anymore. When I arrived at Stratton's sleek downtown office, my reflection in the mirrored lobby didn't look like the man who once stood in the rain, broken and unseen. My suit was custom tailored, my confidence steady. Still, beneath the polished surface, a pulse of memory throbbed. The receptionist escorted me into a glass conference room overlooking the city. And there she was, Vanessa, sitting at the table, flipping through presentation slides, unaware of my presence. For a second, I just watched her. The years had softened her. She looked more composed, less performative. But when she finally looked up and saw me, her expression faltered, just slightly. "David," she said quietly. "Miss Reed," I replied with a polite smile. "It's good to see you again." The meeting began stiffly, all business. She presented her team's marketing strategy, concise, confident, but I could tell she was nervous. Her eyes met mine occasionally, but she looked away quickly each time. After the presentation, I asked a few technical questions, purely professional. Still, the tension was tangible. When her team left the room for a short break, it was just the two of us. She exhaled slowly. "I didn't expect to see you again like this." "Neither did I said, sitting back. "Life has a strange sense of humor." She smiled faintly. "You've changed." "I've had reasons to." A silence lingered between us. Heavy, unfinished. She fiddled with her pen, then finally said, "David, about the past." I stopped her gently. "You don't have to explain. It's old history." "I know," she said softly, "but I've thought about that night more times than I can admit. What I said was cruel. I was stupid, arrogant." I nodded slowly. "We all make mistakes." Her eyes searched mine. "You really forgave me?" I paused, not for effect, but because forgiveness is complicated. "I moved on," I said. "That's not quite the same thing." The partnership went forward. Professionally, it made sense. Her firm's reach, my company's platform. But emotionally, it was a minefield. We met several times over following weeks, always surrounded by colleagues, always maintaining a veneer of professionalism. But behind the polished smiles, something old and raw was stirring. One night, after a long strategy session, the team left and she asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. "For old time's sake," she said with a small smile. I hesitated, then agreed. We found a quiet cafe nearby, not the same one, but eerily similar. The smell of roasted beans, the soft hum of music, the rain tapping outside, it all felt like déjà vu. This time, she spoke first. "I remember that night, every detail. I thought I was being honest, but really I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" I asked. She looked down. "Of seeing something in you that I didn't have in myself. You had this belief, even when you had nothing. I didn't understand it, so I dismissed it." Her words landed heavily. For the first time, I saw her not as the woman who broke me, but as someone who had been just as lost, hiding behind confidence, terrified of failure. I nodded slowly. "You don't owe me anything, Vanessa." "I know," she said, "but I wish I could take it back." I leaned back, watching the rain outside. "If you could," I said, "I wouldn't be who I am today." She smiled sadly. "Then maybe I should thank you for forgiving me." "I didn't forgive you," I said quietly. "I just learned that pain is the best kind of teacher." The partnership turned out to be a massive success. Together, our teams launched a campaign that made headlines. The world saw two professionals collaborating brilliantly. No one knew the storm beneath the surface. But behind closed doors, things were changing. She started visiting my office more often, staying longer after meetings, asking about my life. It wasn't forced. It felt familiar. And one evening, as we stood by the elevator after another late meeting. She said softly, "You know, sometimes I wish I had stayed that night." I looked at her, unsure how to respond. "Back then," she continued, "I was chasing status. I thought success was measured by who you stood next to. But now, I see you built something real. You became something real." Her voice trembled slightly, and I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I'd seen that sooner. I could have said 100 things, but I didn't, because deep down I knew she wasn't the woman I needed anymore. Still, part of me ached, not for her, but for the man I had been, the one who needed her approval. Weeks later, we were both invited to a charity gala celebrating entrepreneurs and innovators. When I arrived, flashbulbs popped, journalists shouted my name, and the crowd parted as I walked through. And then I saw her, standing at the edge of the crowd, watching me, alone. She smiled faintly when our eyes met. "You really made it," she said softly. I smiled back. "We both did." She hesitated. "Maybe, but I lost something along the way." "What's that?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes glistening. "You." The words hung in the air. Not desperate, not manipulative, just honest. I didn't answer right away, because for the first time, I realized something profound. I no longer needed her to see my worth. I already knew it. I offered her a gentle smile. "Maybe in another lifetime," I said. She nodded, fighting back a tear. "Maybe." That night, I went home to my apartment overlooking the city. The skyline glittered, 1,000 windows of stories, dreams, regrets. I stood there for a long time, watching the rain slide down the glass. The world saw me as a success story, but inside, I was still figuring out what success really meant. And as I stared into the city lights, a thought whispered at the edge of my mind, that perhaps my journey wasn't about proving her wrong, but discovering what love, forgiveness, and purpose truly meant. I didn't know it yet, but the next chapter of my story was about to test everything I believed in ways I never imagined. The choice. The weeks that followed the charity gala were surreal. My company, Evolve, continued to grow, expanding into international markets. Investors and media praised me as a visionary, a self-made success. Yet, despite the accolades, something tugged at my mind constantly. Vanessa. Her presence at the gala had stirred memories I thought I'd buried. Not just the humiliation, but the lessons I'd learned. How I had transformed that pain into purpose. How I had clawed my way from invisible to influential. And now she lingered in my thoughts like a question I hadn't yet answered. Then the call came. It was late evening. My assistant whispered nervously, "It's Vanessa. She wants to see you. It's urgent." I felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Send her up?" I replied. Minutes later, she stepped into my office. Gone was the confident, aloof demeanor she once carried. Now, she looked fragile, disheveled, eyes wide as if she had run through a storm. "David," she began, voice trembling, I need your help." I raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" She swallowed, staring at the floor. "I made mistakes, bad mistakes. My firm, everything I built, it's collapsing. I don't know what to do. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong." I studied her. Part of me wanted to step back, let her face the consequences of her arrogance. Another part remembered the girl I once knew, proud, hurt, trying to navigate the world with whatever weapon she had. "You want my help?" I asked finally. "Yes," she whispered. "Please." I felt a familiar tug, the same internal debate that had tested me years ago. Helping her would not just be professional. It would be deeply personal. I remembered the coffee, the rain, the words she had thrown at me. Not worth her time. I remembered the countless nights I had spent learning, working, building. Could I set aside that memory and assist her? I paused. Then I realized the truth. My life wasn't about revenge. My transformation, my company, my success, they were about creating value, purpose, and dignity. And if helping her preserve that, if it upheld my principles, then maybe I could do it without compromising myself. We spent the next few days in relentless work sessions. Vanessa admitted everything: poor management decisions, overconfidence, ignoring her team, alienating clients. She was honest in a way that surprised me, vulnerable, raw, and pleading. I taught her the strategies I had learned, guided her through damage control, and helped her rebuild key relationships. She absorbed everything like a sponge, eager, desperate, and humbled. Watching her grow, I felt a strange mix of pride and wariness. She had always been clever, but cleverness without humility had once caused pain. Would this time be different? Only time would tell. After 2 weeks of constant collaboration, Vanessa's firm stabilized. Clients returned. Investors renewed confidence. Employees began respecting her again. She turned to me one night, exhausted, leaning against my office door. "You saved me," she said quietly. I shook my head. "You save yourself. I just help you see the path." She looked up at me, her eyes glistening. "I don't deserve this, or you. You deserve what you earn," I replied, "not what you beg for." Even as she regained her footing, I felt a shift inside her, a humility I hadn't seen before. She was no longer the woman who dismissed me, who made me feel invisible. She was different, not perfect, but changed. Yet, despite her transformation, a part of me wondered, was this the real Vanessa, or just a reflection of the lessons I had taught her? And that question became even more pressing as she began to show up at my office, not just for work, but socially: lunch meetings, strategy sessions, casual walks downtown. Our interactions were polite, almost cordial, yet charged with unspoken tension. Then one afternoon, an unexpected email arrived. Subject: personal proposal, urgent, from Vanessa Reed. It was not a business pitch. It was an invitation, a personal appeal for partnership outside the company. She wanted to merge her new ventures with mine, asking me to invest personally in her ideas, to give her the edge she lacked before. I sat at my desk, reading it over and over. Helping her professionally was one thing. I had done that without hesitation. But investing my own capital, my reputation, my energy into her world, that was different. That was trust. That was risk. And more importantly, it was a choice. That night, I walked the rooftop terrace of my apartment, looking out at the city lights. The wind cut through the silence. I replayed the moments from years ago, the cafe, the rain, the words that had once haunted me. I remembered the nights I worked through exhaustion, the first coding project, the first investors who believed in me, the first taste of success. I thought about Vanessa, vulnerable now, asking for my help, showing growth and remorse. I thought about the man I had become, the one who no longer needed validation, but still had the capacity to help, to lead, to forgive. I realized then that the true test wasn't whether I could help her. It was whether I could do so without compromising who I had become. The next morning, I called her. She answered immediately, voice anxious. "David, have you decided?" I paused. "Yes," I said slowly. "I will help you, but on one condition. You do everything I say without excuses, without shortcuts, and without reverting to your old ways. This isn't just about survival. This is about transformation. If you fail, it's on you. If you succeed, it's because you earn it." Her relief was palpable. "I understand. Thank you. I won't fail you." "I hope not," I said quietly, "because this is bigger than either of us, and we'll both be tested." Over the next months, our partnership flourished. Vanessa applied herself in ways I hadn't thought possible. She implemented the strategies I suggested, reconnected with employees, and transformed her firm from a failing venture into a growing, respected company. Yet, even as success returned, the dynamic between us shifted subtly. Respect replaced tension, but the old questions lingered. Could trust fully replace betrayal? Could friendship replace hurt? Could admiration exist without lingering resentment? And then, one evening, she looked me squarely in the eyes and asked a question I had been avoiding. "Do you still remember that night?" I smiled faintly. Every word. Her lips trembled. "And you've become so much more than I imagined." I leaned back, letting the silence speak. "Yes," I said finally, "I've become someone I never needed anyone else to recognize." But the story was far from over, Because even in success, in forgiveness, in transformation, life has a way of testing you in ways you never see coming, in choices you never expected to face. And in the shadows of the city, a new challenge, one that could undo everything, was quietly waiting for the man who had once been dismissed, underestimated, and rejected. The reckoning. The city skyline glittered below my office window as I stood alone, the hum of traffic a distant echo. The past few months had been intense. Partnership after partnership, mentoring Vanessa, stabilizing her company, watching her transformation. She had changed undeniably, and so had I. Yet, despite all our professional victories, a quiet tension lingered between us. Success had drawn us closer, but the ghosts of the past, humiliation, rejection, the cafe that night, still hovered. And then the email arrived. Subject: immediate threat to evolve from anonymous. I froze. The message was simple, chilling. A series of accusations were circulating online, alleging corporate fraud, misuse of funds, and unethical practices. The claims were false, but the timing was suspicious. Someone wanted to destabilize everything I had built, and I knew exactly who had the most to gain if Evolve faltered. Vanessa stepped into my office moments later, having noticed my grim expression. "They're trying to sabotage us?" she asked, her voice tense. "Yes," I said, not taking my eyes off the screen. "And I have a strong suspicion about who's behind it. Someone threatened by our success, by what we've built." She looked uneasy. "You think? Could it be someone from my old firm?" I nodded. "It's possible, but this isn't just about them. It's about proving that we can survive under pressure, and without compromising our values." The next days were a whirlwind of activity. Legal teams, PR consultants, and cybersecurity experts became our lifelines. Every decision I made had consequences. A single mistake could cost not just money, but trust. Vanessa worked tirelessly, too, proving her commitment. She was no longer the woman who once dismissed me. She was someone I could rely on, not because she owed me, but because she had earned her place. One evening, after a 12-hour day, we found ourselves alone in the conference room. She sat across from me, exhausted, her hands trembling as she held a cup of cold coffee. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "It's too much. I've never faced anything like this in my life." I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "You're stronger than you think. You've proven that already. The lessons of the past, the mistakes, the failures, they made you capable of this moment." Her eyes glistened with tears. "And what about you? You've been carrying this too, haven't you?" I smiled faintly. "I've been tested before. I know who I am now. And no matter what happens, I'll protect everything we built, even if it means making choices you don't like." The crisis escalated. Social media erupted with false claims. Journalists called for comments. Our investors were anxious. And through it all, Vanessa stayed by my side, not clinging, not begging, but collaborating, learning, supporting. Late one night, after successfully neutralizing the first wave of attacks, we stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city. The lights reflected off the river below, shimmering like 1,000 tiny promises. She spoke softly. "I owe you more than I can ever repay, for giving me a chance, for not holding the past against me." I shook my head. "You don't owe me. We both grew through this. That's all the repayment I need." Her eyes searched mine. "Do you still think about that night? The cafe?" I paused. The memory was still vivid. The rain, her words, the sting of rejection. Sometimes, I admitted, but not with anger. It taught me everything I needed to know about resilience, about myself, and it gave me a reason to build what I have today. Weeks passed. The company recovered fully. The attackers were exposed. Competitors attempting sabotage to steal clients and destabilize us. Their plans failed because of diligence, foresight, and the culture we had nurtured. Integrity, persistence, and courage. Vanessa's firm merged seamlessly with Evolve, creating a powerhouse in the tech sector. But what mattered most wasn't the money or the accolades. It was the people, the employees, the trainees from the mentorship program. Even the young developers she once dismissed, they had become a family united by respect and purpose. And yet, the question remained. Could we fully reconcile the past? Could we ever see each other without the shadow of former pain lingering between us? One evening, as we celebrated a major milestone with our team, Vanessa approached me privately. She looked nervous, vulnerable. "David," she whispered, "there's something I need to tell you, something I've realized. I waited. I never appreciated you. Not then, not until I saw who you became. And she hesitated, taking a deep breath. Before she could finish, my phone buzzed. An urgent message flashed. A new opportunity, a global expansion, a challenge that could change the course of our company and our lives forever. I looked back at her. Her expression was open, honest, waiting for closure, for acknowledgement. And I realized life would always offer choices. Opportunities, risks, forgiveness, revenge. I smiled gently. "Vanessa, some things we don't need to rush. Right now, the world needs us to focus. The rest," I gestured at the city below, alive with possibilities, "can wait." She nodded, understanding, accepting the unspoken truth. We had both changed, grown, and learned that sometimes timing is everything. That night, as I stood alone on a balcony, looking at the skyline, I understood something profound. The woman who once said I wasn't worth her time had become a witness to my transformation. Not the cause of it, but the mirror. And that mirror was powerful. It reflected not just success, but integrity, resilience, and the choices that defined a person. The future stretched ahead, vast, uncertain, thrilling. Opportunities to expand, to inspire, to teach, to protect, and to grow awaited. Challenges, yes, but also possibilities. And deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. The world would test me again. Others would doubt me, underestimate me, or even try to harm what I had built. But I had learned that every insult, every dismissal, every setback was a spark. And now I was ready, because life, as I had discovered, wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving yourself right. And the next chapter, one that could change everything once more, was waiting just beyond the horizon. The end. For now, finale with an open door for future sequels, expansion of the company, and personal challenges.